see the evidence in case number 84920. This was one of the most tragic cases that I have worked. This is a case about Christina Eubanks. Christina Eubanks was an absolutely beautiful young lady.
She was 29. She had gone to college. Everybody described her as very friendly.
She was a creature of habit. She would always call her boyfriend at around 10 o'clock at night.
He had recently moved, and so she was living alone.
On this particular night, she did not call him, so he reached out to her friends to find out if they had heard from her, if they knew if something was wrong. And so her friends started contacting each other to see if anyone had heard from Christina Eubanks, and no one had.
Christina's best friend was concerned enough that she went to the apartment and she got a neighbor to actually crawl through the window. And when they got inside, Christina wasn't there.
One of her friends specifically said that in her bedroom, she noticed that things were amiss, specifically that her eyeglasses were on her nightstand. And she found that to be extremely unusual because Christina always wore her glasses because she had very poor vision. So her friends called 911 to have Knoxville Police Department respond to her apartment. At this point, we really didn't know what had happened to Christina, who had been with Christina, so we began to collect forensic evidence from the apartment. There were fragments of porcelain in her apartment, on the sidewalk, out in front of her apartment.
The toilet tank lid from the toilet was missing. And in the living room floor, in front of the couch, was a large blood stain. That would lead you to believe that something tragic has happened to the victim.
There could have been a homicide that was committed with a unique weapon, a toilet lid. Things were so wrong at her apartment that they knew that they had a serious case of a missing person on their hands. In the apartment, we found a marijuana pipe, so we began to surmise that there could have been people there that evening smoking pot with her. So we began to look for those individuals.
When Christina first went missing, the police, of course, interviewed her boyfriend. And even though he had moved to another state, he still routinely visited her, and they talked every day on the phone. What they could not find was any motive for him to be upset with Christina, let alone kill her. And he was out of state at that time.
There was no evidence left that we could point to and say, hey, this evidence is leading us to a particular suspect. I mean, it absolutely required us to go out and interview people and look for additional evidence outside the apartment. And that leads us to Dustin Truckin.
Dustin Truckin was a neighbor of Christina Eubanks, and he socialized with Christina and her boyfriend. Dustin was leery of the police and, quite candidly, was drunk and had been smoking marijuana on the day that she went missing. So he was a little reluctant.
But what broke this case wide open would be Dustin Truckin.
He gave the police a really good clue.
Dustin told the police that he had seen another friend by the name of Marvin Hill outside of Christina Eubanks' apartment in the early morning hours. He had a conversation with Marvin, and Marvin Hill had told him that Marvin was helping Christina move, and he was carrying stuff to his RAV4 SUV. It was like 3 o'clock in the morning, and that was odd. That was not normal.
Marvin Hill knew Christina and her group of friends, even though he was 47. They were all in their 20s. He knew them because he was someone who smoked pot with them and supplied them with marijuana.
When the police first interviewed Marvin Hill, he said that he had gone over there, that she called him wanting pot, but that was about it. Said he didn't know anything about what had happened.
At that point in time, the police believed that the last person to see Christina Eubanks that we knew of was Marvin Hill. They got a search warrant for Marvin Hill's RAV4. In the RAV4, they found blood evidence able to determine that the blood belonged to Christina Eubanks.
And they found in the vehicle the stun gun. At that point, he became suspect number one. They asked Marvin Hill to come in for questioning, and the police get a confession from him. It was crucial for their case.
Marvin Hill told a bizarre story. That evening, he had come over to the apartment, according to him, at her request. They had smoked pot together. After they smoked pot, Christina asked Marvin Hill if he would have sex with her. According to him, they had been engaged in a consensual relationship for the last few months and had sex numerous times. He said she began to tell him that she was going to tell his wife, and at that point told her he was going to have to call it off, and she persisted in the bathroom with this argument, and he became so enraged that he had no choice other than to take the toilet lid and hit her with it.
Marvin said that he used the stun gun to try to stun her back to consciousness after he beat her with the toilet tank lid. I've never heard of using a stun gun to stun someone back to consciousness.
It was almost as if he wanted to make her sound like this sex-starved, crazy wild girl. So as defenses go, to further vilify your victim is disgusting.
Marvin Hill agreed to tell the police where the body was located. Her nude body was face down in a body of water. Miss Eubanks' body was taken to the medical examiner's office.
Part of the story that she called Mr. Hill to deliver drugs and then they smoked drugs, that part of the story was not correct. Based on the evaluation, toxicological evaluation, Christina Eubanks did not smoke pot. She had not smoked pot days preceding her death.
We believe that he decided that he wanted to have sex and that at that point he used the stun gun on Christina to overpower her, to have sex with her, and as she fought back, that is where the toilet lid comes in.
There's just absolutely no reason in the world why she would want to be with Marvin Hill. There was just no evidence at all of that.